Welcome back to a bit Gamey and a quick history video on Lend-Lease to Russia during World War II. It's been a long-standing argument, because I remember people arguing about this back when I was a teenager, so it's at least 40 years old. And I think the main the argument tends to kind of go over the total quantity of stuff sent versus what the Soviets produced. So, for example, the people who think it was important talk about the quantity of stuff that was sent, including kind of potentially very critical elements like aviation fuel. And the people on the other side of the argument will be talking about the total amount of stuff produced by the Soviets over the whole war, and comparing that to what was given by Lend-Lease. And I've heard figures like 4%. So it's like I don't know, but they say that that Lend-Lease was like 4% of the total stuff produced by the Soviets over the whole war, and that seems quite plausible to me. And I don't think there's going to be any end to the argument, because there's a political angle to it, in that the more pro-Soviet people will want to say will tend to be on the Lend-Lease wasn't important side of the argument, and other people might have like thinking about all the people who died on the Arctic convoys, for example. I think they want to make or they want to state that Lend-Lease was very important. But both sides, I think, are missing what I think is a critical point, which is it's not the total quantity sent by Lend-Lease, but the timing. Because the initial German invasion was so successful, and the situation at the beginning of the war was that most of the Soviet industry was in the west of Russia, Moscow, Leningrad, Kiev, etc. Various big cities on the western end of west of the Urals, put it that way. And the German advance was so rapid, and they kind of got to the point where they're besieging all these cities that had all the industry and all the factories. And so the solution, or what the Soviets did, was that they moved all their factories east of the Urals. So the real question is not the total quantity of stuff produced over the whole of the war, but whether Lend-Lease was critical at that critical point, i.e., when all the Russian factories were being moved east of the Urals. So that, to me, should be what the argument is about. And either way, I do think it could have been critical at that point. I don't know. I don't have a clear opinion on whether it was or not. But I think that's the critical point. It's not the total amount produced over the course of the war, but the total amount sent during that critical period when they're moving their factories east of the Urals. And just to stress that point, if you look at a map, Moscow, St. Petersburg over here, very west of Russia. The Ural Mountains is not in the middle. It's maybe around the third of the way across. So you've got to move loads of factories, from around there to around there, and then sort out all the supply chains and all that kind of stuff. Then it's a very major undertaking. That'd be a major undertaking in peacetime, let alone in the middle of a war. So maybe the stuff that came from Lend-Lease, I think it was from when sent to Archangel, I think, I'm not sure, was potentially critical. I don't know if it was or not, but if anyone's arguing in terms of the quantity of stuff sent by Lend-Lease, or arguing that it was a small percentage of the total produced during the war, I think they're both barking up the wrong tree, personally. And the argument should be over how critical it was during that point after 1941 or whatever it was, or during 1941-92, when all the factories were being moved to the east. Was it critical then or not? From a wargaming point of view, obviously, having various Valentines and Matilda tanks, in Russian paint schemes with Russian infantry, that's kind of appealing. But whether rather rubbishy British tanks was critical or not, I think it's a bit unlikely. But the other things, particularly aviation fuel, I'd say was probably one of the most critical ones. But yeah, so from a wargame point of view, there's a certain element of entertainment can be obtained with say Matildas and Valentines or whatever in Russian service. But in terms of the big argument that's been raging, say for at least 40 years, I'd say it's if people talking about the total quantity produced in the war and comparing that with the total quantity from Lend-Lease, say they're both barking up the wrong tree in my opinion, and it should be focused on that time when they were moving all their factories east of the Urals. So I think that's it. Okie doke, to whip.